Eric, welcome aboard to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Ari. I'm happy to be here. Very
I
excited.
I have never heard of a endurance trail. What is that?
Well, it's a 100-mile trail race through the mountains. They're all over the world. It's a whole subculture of running that people really haven't heard of called ultra running. And ultra running, the definition of ultra running is literally anything over a marathon distance. So
So
50K, 50 mile,
just to
100K,
give
100 mile.
just to give perspective, a marathon is about 25 miles.
It is literally 26.2 miles. It
So this
used to
is
be 26 miles, but the London Olympics, the King's reviewing stand was zero point 0.2 miles away from the finish line. So they decided to extend it to make room so the King could see the finishers. That's why every time you run in a marathon, you thank the King for those extra two.
I did not know that
The
story.
26 miles is the distance between Athens and Marathon, Greece. That's where the name comes from, Marathon, Greece. So yeah.
So this is 4 times a marathon. What brings you to run these endurance trails? When did you learn about it? When did you say like, oh sure, I'll do that?
I was living in I'd moved to Northern California. I was a runner at the time. I had run a couple of marathons. And while I was out in Northern California, I discovered this world of trail running.
Mm.
And it was rapturous. I don't know any other way to put it. It was, after years of pounding pavement and running road races where you see mile markers and then mile markers and then mile markers, and you just want to finish. Suddenly you're spending 6 hours going up and down narrow single track trails in woods with wild animals around you and lakes off in the distance. And it's just something amazing about it. But why you do it is always an interesting question, because the answer is even more interesting.
Mm.
The answer is actually pain. You actually look to get to this point where you are in pain. And when I say pain, it's rarely physical, although you're certainly physically worn out or whatever. But this mental pain of, there's not a chance I can continue to do this. There's no way I'm going to be able to finish. And it's an amazing, talk about runner's high. This is a different world. This is a common answer, by the way. In the ultra running community, pain will be the frequent answer you hear, because when you take yourself through that pain and you get on the other side of it, it's transcendent, as well as the surroundings are transcendent. So the whole thing is really quite an amazing experience.
Is this, I'm going to call it, a shared experience of pain? Does that create camaraderie inside of the teams doing these trail runs?
Well, there are no teams. It's all
it's groups. You're not alone, right?
Well, yeah, but there's no teams. Like, everybody's an individual competitor in that. The camaraderie is with the support system. Now, that's the great question that you asked. You have friends and family who are waiting like 4 hours for you to come to an aid station to refill your water bottles and do whatever. And they see you for like 3 minutes. Like, you come in, you kiss your wife, you complain about your knee, whatever you do. And then you're gone because you don't want to spend a lot of time in there. The clock's running.
Right.
And then they pick up and drive, oftentimes on mountainous roads in the middle of the night, to wait for you another 4 hours. So you really appreciate this phenomenal support system, not only your friends and family, but the people that are doing the aid stations, because they're all out there for you. And I think that's a really rewarding part of the sport.
Anybody get hurt?
You have this and that, you fall, not typically. That's not really the thing. It's interesting. So many people, because it depends on how fast you are, of course, but I was typically in the 24, 25 hour range for a 100-mile race. So many people were like, well,
wait, hold on. So 24, 25 hour, that means you're running more or less straight for 25 hours. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah. You got to finish.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Why not?
I mean, you have to finish. Yeah. I mean, you certainly walk, very steep mountain uphills and things like that. And maybe you walk at the end because you can't run anymore. There's all that. But so many people will say, well, what about the sleep? Like, how do you get through that? And I tell you, it is the last thing you care about. It
Yeah.
is not what you care about. Sleep is rarely the problem for you. It's just there's so much adrenaline and so many emotions that are happening. Sleep's not the problem. Sometimes it's physical problems. It's oftentimes mental problems, very much mental.
I just want to put this on a scale for our audience. So my family and I were working towards a 14er, which is like a 6-7 hour thing. It's 8 miles, right? Here we're talking 100 miles, and it's like 3,000 feet gain. This is a whole different scale, and people like 14ers are considered hard, difficult. People can't do them. It's a huge achievement and challenge. This is on a scale that is 10x, right? Just number to number. So this is this is way beyond batshit crazy. It's not close. It's gone beyond. I don't know what to call it.
Which 14er? Which 14er?
So we're working towards one of the easier 14ers because we have a 6-year-old. So this summer last summer we tried to do this. We didn't get close enough on our skill. This summer we're going to try. We're doing a different strategy this summer. We're going to start the 14er, and the second we hit 11 a.m. we're going to turn back. And then we're going to do that again and again and again until we basically feel like, yep, we can do it.
That's
as you probably know, if you go over a certain hour on a 14er, you die. Like, you die. There's no two ways about it. So it's a safety issue. So you really have to be fit. And for back then a 5-year-old and this year a 6-year-old to do that with his older brother and sister.
And the 6-year-old you're not carrying them. You're telling me
no.
They're doing it. Wow.
I'm not strong enough to carry him.
One of the 100 milers I did, Ari, was the Leadville 100. And that was the hardest one. So that's a little bit in your physical backyard, Leadville, Colorado. Leadville, Colorado is the highest point in the continental United States. It's 10,002 at the start. That's a fun race. So you don't do 14ers, you do a couple of 13ers during that race. That's the
problem, right? People don't understand. You're starting the race if you're doing a 14er. You're doing 3,000 feet gain. You're starting the race at high altitude, right? You can barely breathe at the beginning of the altitude. By the time you're done, it's. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, but it's a beer stand. Is the name of the 14er that we're planning on doing. It's considered one of the easier 14ers because we got to start somewhere.
Yeah. What a cool experience! You'll love it. I mean, if you haven't done it yet, it's really quite amazing.
We're really looking forward to it. We're walking every day 4 miles to kind of get in shape, and then on the weekends we're doing 6 to 8 miles. And I'm thinking if we can do 8 miles, 10 miles. With 3,000 gain on just a regular mountain, there's a chance that we can finish a 14er because then you're not experiencing that elevation. There's a chance you can do it. So,
big key is nutrition. You got to get that dialed in. It's not just conditioning. It's the same with ultra running that we were just talking about. It's about eating. It's about hydrating. It's about electrolytes. There's a lot of things that go into making all of that work. So make sure you're doing that.
So, Eric, this show is the art of going down the rabbit hole. We never know what to expect. That's why people. It's been called addictive. I think for amongst other that reason.
I like that. That's great.
I want to ask you this, right? Early in your career, did you know what was in front of you? Did you know that it was acquisitions and mergers and CEOing and finance, and obviously you didn't know it was AI, but technology? Or what was that point when you were 18 and you're like, well, where am I going with this? What did that feel like? What did that sound like? How did you make a decision?
I like that phrase, CEOing. I like that. Yeah. What are you doing? I'm CEOing.
CEOing hard.
So here's the real answer. I got into this business because of typing. That's the answer. I was in the 8th grade of school. I took a typing class. I was the fastest typer in the class. I was the only boy in the class. So 2 things happened. It gave me a remarkable skill for my life, and I met my wife.
At 8 years old? Sorry, wait, hold on.
8th grade.
8th grade. Okay. Yeah. Still, that's still pretty
years old. I met the woman, the young lady, the girl, if you will. who is my wife still today, some many years later. So two things great. I always say that two things great happened in typing. I got a skill that led me where I am, and I met my wife. Ultimately, met my wife. And the reason I say that is, at a very young point in my career, I used that skill to land a job as a data entry clerk at
So,
a
so people like,
at a
unless
store.
you're my age and older, people don't know what a data entry clerk
That's
is. So
right. Yeah.
you got to explain that.
You got to explain. Well, yeah. I mean, it was literally, keyboarding information that would be fed into the computer. That's what it was, right?
That's
So
right.
in the earlier days of computing, you didn't speak, and it went into the computer, and you didn't touch a screen, but you had to feed it. We did it by literally typing information in, could be reports or, sales or whatever. This was for a store that I was working for. And I got it because I was a exceptional typist and I could type very fast. I had very few errors, so that was it. The job though was physically next to the computer room, like physically. So people talk about getting their foot in the door. I literally put my foot in there. It's like, I'm sorry, I really want to work in there. I'm like, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, we hear you, we hear you. And then a job came open. I was, in my early 20s. A job came open for a nighttime computer operator. And I took that job. And it was
We need to explain this. What does a nighttime computer operator
okay.
do? And
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
gonna guess
nighttime just means you work the night shift because it was
this is about
24
the
hours.
50s, 60s, right?
Yeah.
What years was
No,
this?
no, the 50s, 60s.
When was
No, no.
this?
This is the
70s?
80s. This is the
80s.
80s.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the
80s.
80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
aligning myself with what type of
Oh,
computers
50s,
existed.
60s. Boy, we'd have to do an age
This is
calculation on that.
punch
Yeah.
cards.
I'm
I
not
thought you were
85.
doing punch cards.
No, it
Okay.
wasn't punch cards. We were into diskettes at that time. Punch
Okay.
cards
Just
were gone. Punch cards
okay.
were gone. I was it was a diskette that IBM had,
Okay.
right?
Fair
And
enough.
so back then, for our listeners who don't know, there were only mainframes. That was really the only kind of computers that existed. There was no such thing as Windows or Linux or
Yeah.
certainly no mobile phones or cell phones of any kind at that time, right? I mean, it was mainframes, and they were very large computers that companies spent millions
Yeah.
to
Millions.
buy that don't have 100,000th of the power that your MacBook has on your desk now. Uh, but they ran critical systems, payroll
Yeah.
systems, inventory systems, sales systems, all of those kind of things. And so a computer operator was somebody that would go in and make certain that the data went into the computer and the reports came out and made everything run smoothly, right? That kind of thing. But that was a haven, and the fact that it was a night, the night shift was important because it meant I was the only person there. The entire company was gone. It was just me, only me. I loved that because it was like an incubator. I suddenly had this really powerful, at the time, computer at my disposal. I had to get a job done, but if I got the job done, I had time to do lots of other things. And I
And just
started
to
writing software. I started
just
writing
to
code.
explain this, the
Yeah,
compute time was so valuable that they wanted to use the computer basically 24/7 as much as they could.
that's right. Yes, that's exactly right. Yep. Yeah, that's why it was a night shift because during the day people were using it, to run the store and to process reports during the day and write programs and do things like that. But at night you had work that, at the time it was called batch work.
Backend, yeah,
Yeah,
backend.
where you were running, updates of files and processing today's sales so you could produce new financials and produce the reports so that people would come back in the morning and they'd read the report. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
But
So
but I always see that as a fortunate thing. Like I could have got a daytime computer operator job and I would have been in there with 8 other people doing things. I'm not sure I would have had the same freedom. I was given this unbelievable gift of freedom. And this is really what started a thread that runs through today in 2025, 100%. And that is the fascination with automation. I loved writing something that I could then just type a one word command and watch everything start to
but
go.
what did you do with it? Were you playing, did you program Pong? Were you
No, no,
doing
no,
math?
no, no. I was automating the work I was doing.
No, but when you were done with so
I
you're
was
done with your
I was writing
tasks.
code to do what I was doing
Okay.
manually automatically.
Okay.
It was
So
where that's a thread that runs through my entire life
okay,
still
okay.
today. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Um where so you started with a very hardcore tech software developer, so to speak. Um, when did the, let's say, shift or expansion is really what it was? When did that expansion towards the business and the finance world happen?
So the company that I was working for at the time was a a catalog showroom is what they called it. It was it was a store, a network of stores. They ended up selling to another company. I
Mm,
was living in South Carolina at the time, and besides that job, there were no IT jobs whatsoever. It was very much a military town. It was Charleston, South Carolina, and we had family that lived in Dallas, Texas. And
mm,
Dallas, Texas, this was a boom time for IT jobs. So the company sold. They made an opportunity for people to take jobs. I don't even remember where the company that they sold to moved to. But we decided to pick up and move to Dallas,
mm.
and came to Dallas. Got here on a Thursday. Got a haircut on a Saturday. Went to 2 interviews on Monday, and I had 2 job offers by Thursday of that week. So 100% true story. Not making it.
Nice.
And again, this is fortunate. This is luck. This is not. I picked right. Like just I got the nighttime job. I explained why that was great. I had 2 jobs, similar computer operator, this one, and then this other one that I ended up taking, which was at a bank. It was a financial firm.
Mm,
Uh, what I didn't know and would come to learn over the next couple of years working there was it was full of still to this day, some of the smartest people I've ever been around. They didn't have a lot of money. So instead of buying things from vendors, they wrote everything themselves.
mm.
They wrote their own operating systems.
Oh
They
wow.
wrote their own compilers for software development. They built their own hardware. They programmed their own motherboards. I mean, it was remarkable. And I was then surrounded by these phenomenal people who taught me really this thing that I've said the rest of my career to a lot of people. They made me realize that everything is just code. Well, how does that work? It's just code. That operating system that seems so mysterious, it's just code. Like somebody just wrote the code. Maybe it's IBM that wrote it, but so what? They're just people that came to work every day and sat there and wrote code. How hard can it be? Just go look at the code. You mean the operating system? Oh yeah, yeah, sure. What are we going to do to it? Well, we're going to change it. We're going to change IBM's operating system. Well, yeah, they're not going to change it for us. We're going to change it. We've got the source code. But at the time, you still had source code available for operating systems. And so that shifted me to a completely different gear of deep internal systems. And I became a particular expert in telecommunications and networks, and networking between computers. That was kind of my affinity. Uh, and that turned into becoming very acquainted with a small software company that was based in Boston. Really understood this man's product really well. And one day he said to me, "Well, I want to sell the business." He's
Mm.
just a little one man firm, one product. He had, I don't know, $1.2 million of revenue that he had built over the time. And I ended up putting together a deal to buy his company. And I left
Oh
this
wow.
bank data processing company that I was working for, which, by the way, that story is a great one because this was at the dawn of the ATM, the automatic teller network. And I still remember the meetings was like, what if this takes off and we actually end up with like 100 ATMs? Are we going to be able to handle that? Can you imagine that story? It's just a great story. Yeah. Because no one knew, like, are you going to trust a machine? Are people going to get money out of that? Like,
Right.
don't they prefer their tellers? Doesn't that sound familiar,
Yeah.
Ari?
My
Right?
my dad, when we were building basically a store, and this was in the during the bubble, the .NET bubble. We were building basically the equivalent of MSN stores, right?
Hmm.
And he was like, nobody will pay money over the internet.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
nobody will give their credit card over the
yeah,
internet.
yeah.
And we were concerned about this. So we had the store, when you checked out, you had to call a number to give your like your credit card number to actually finish the purchase. Can you imagine that?
I,
So
I,
that's
I can. We're living
so
through this again. I mean, we are. I don't want to type anything into Chat GPT because I don't know what it's doing with it. Right? I mean,
okay.
it's just the same evolution. It is.
Look, this the humanity goes through cycles,
Yes.
and every generation has to learn its lessons the hard way, I would argue. So we're going through that once more. We unfortunately, we're almost at time, believe it or not. This has been so much fun, but I want to catch a few more topics.
Okay.
What do you think are the biggest challenges with AI adoption nowadays? When people are like, hell no, what are they saying? What are they afraid of?
Well, my company, let me answer that in two ways, both what I experienced at my companies and what I am experiencing externally. Uh, Internally, we led a transformation of our company. When I say transformation, has been called by many radical and extreme, where we made it a a, a a critical part of our going forward plan. And we spent a year investing in time, tools, people, bringing in outside experts to teach them. And I started referring to it quite, I think, credibly as a gift. We were giving them a gift. We were spending time and money to teach them what I think is going to be one of the most important skills for the rest of their lives, not just in what job they were doing for us. And I used to say that even if you don't stay with us, it's still a gift. Like you're going to leave and you're going to, bring that with you. And what I found was a cultural resistance that I didn't expect. I just didn't expect it. And here's the funny thing, Ari, I'm CEO of a software company. The technical people were the most resistant. This was a surprise.
No.
Yes.
Why?
Marketing, sales, finance, they're like, oh my gosh, tools at my fingertips. This is great. Oh, they'd fold their arms and say, that thing doesn't know how to code. It can't code as well as I do. It hasn't spent 15 years caring for this product. And I thought, oh no, I didn't get that. I didn't get that. And I kept trying. I tried really hard. No, come on, let's just try it. And so we ended up with some people that just flat out refused. They had to leave. We had some people that tried, but they didn't really try because they never believed. And to me, that was the difference. They didn't believe. And if you don't believe in anything, it just shoots the chances of success in the foot, right? And then we had others that tried and just weren't really good at it, like didn't have the aptitude. But my conscience is clear because I spent a year of time, effort, and money to make that, right? So culturally, internally, externally, we're dealing with, and I mean this in the literal sense, not in the pejorative sense, ignorance. We're just dealing with ignorance. People don't know what it is. They don't know what it means. They hear a lot of scary stories. And because of that, they're afraid to touch it.
The machine uprising.
Like some of them are like, I'm not going to touch that, It's like, well, let me help.
It's impossible to have a company meeting about AI and for somebody somewhere not to mention, the machine uprising and it's just, what's the one from the Terminator?
Yeah.
Every time. So
one of my presentations that I did at an AI conference, I started off with excerpts from 3 videos, and one of them was Terminator. And the last one was 2001: A Space Odyssey. Remember when it was like, open the bay doors, Hal. I'm sorry, I can't do that. What seems to be the problem? Do you realize when that movie was made?
That was the 60s or the 70s.
It was the 60s. It's 50 years old. We've been telling people for 50 years that the AI is coming for us. Oh my God. And now it's here.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, what do we expect? I mean, this has been like one of our arc narratives. Like it's right there in the so I mean, if you look at any movie ever made, there's like 5 or 6 arc narratives. Like it's always the same. I digress. If you had to give, so I have 2 last questions to you. If you had to give one piece of advice to your kids or your young employees, I don't know at this stage to say what jobs will exist in 10, 20 years. But what's the advice that you would give to your kids to succeed in this new world? And we don't know what's coming.
I just have a broader answer to that question. A lot of people have asked me this question. Why do you think you were able to succeed at work that you did? And I always attribute it to one quality, one main quality. It's the same advice I'd give to my kids. Always ask why, not how. Always, if it comes to technology, somebody says, well, if you just do it like this happens. You got to say, but why? Like, you got to help me understand why. That's always been my
Let,
advantage.
let, let me let me stop you there. Everybody's seen Simon Sinek. Everybody's heard about the Golden Circle, and yet on a day-to-day basis, almost nobody does it. Like it seems to be that there's a gap between the understanding that this is valuable to the practicing of actually doing this on an everyday basis. Have you any idea what the issue is here? Because I can't figure it out.
In terms of AI?
No, in terms of human beings,
Oh,
right? Just because I completely agree with you, right? Golden Circle, Simon Sinek, focus on the why, but that's not what people do.
yeah.
Even though there's an awareness towards this kind of goal and value. Why is that?
There's all kinds of answers. I think it starts from people are embarrassed to ask the same question 3 times because the first 2 times just sounded like Greek. And that's it. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm teaching a technical class right now. Everybody, please, I beg of you. I will explain it 7 different ways because if I blew the first 6, that's on me. That's not on you. I'm here to help you learn. You're supposed to get this concept so you can use it, right? And so I think there's a lot of that. There's certainly peer pressure. They don't want to look bad in front of people, or maybe they don't care as much to go that deep, and they really just want to use it. They don't want to know it, right? I want to know it. Like I always and I think that just has been helpful for me always. I want to know why. How does that work? But why? Yeah, well, that's just the way the software works. Well, what were they thinking when they did that? Like, I don't really get the thought because it's super clunky. It doesn't make sense. I'm just talking, in abstract, but
right.
Yeah, software.
Ego and curiosity, right? Those are the two answers. I like that. I think it makes sense.
Insisting on learning it though. Insisting like, I'm sorry, I know you've told me 4 times, I'm dense. I'm so sorry, but like I still don't get it. I don't get it. But once I get it, that's the difference that everybody should understand, that once you get the why, the how's simple. In fact, you can always figure out the how if you understand the why. That's the fundamental. And it certainly helped me in technology, that's for sure.
One last question. We're completely over time. If you had to, and this is a difficult question, it's the only scripted question in the show. The reason it's difficult is because it's personal. If you had to go back to 20-something-year-old Eric, what advice would you give him?
Yeah, it is a personal question, and I've got the right personal answer. The personal answer is sometimes I am too focused on the task and not enough on the person, and I lose that sometimes. I get very focused on a result, and there are times where that's 100% appropriate. Safety of your family or a medical condition. There are other times where that's not appropriate, and I really should wait a minute, kind of back down a little bit, right? Yeah, it served me well overall, but I've left some wreckage in that wake, and a lot of it I regret. So that's probably, it's a nice introspective question, but that would be my answer. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. This has been an absolute delight.
My pleasure, Ari. I've enjoyed the conversation. It's not like any other podcast I've ever done, so thank you for that.
That's very kind of you to say. Thank you, Eric.